All right, so it might seem impossible to manage your health, your nutrition, your fitness when you're constantly on the move and, if you're going on business trips, whatever. But in this video, I want to talk about basically dining out strategies 101. Also, I have some notes on my iPad on the side. So if you see me panning over, it's because I just want to make sure I don't forget any of the key points. But like I said in this video, let's talk about dining out strategies. Dining out doesn't have to completely derail us from our fitness goals. As someone who's constantly on the move myself, and there's so many different instances that you obviously are going to go through in the different phases of your life, whether it's parenting with kids, whether it's working night shift. So one of the best things you can do is to intermittent fast. If you restrict your time, it's called time restrictive eating. And if you reduce the window that you can actually consume your food, it's going to be a lot harder to overeat. Let's say there's some people that do a variation of this, whether it's 1 meal a day, 2 meals, 3, whatever it is. But if you can shrink the window down, it really helps to reduce the likelihood of overeating. So that's number one. When I intermittent fast personally, these are all strategies I use, by the way. So for intermittent fasting, when I do that, I usually fast until roughly midday. So around like 12 o'clock. Follow my hunger cues a lot of the time. But that's the first one. And then early in the day, definitely do your best to prioritize protein. And I say this because when we dine out, it's so easy to go over on fats, on carbs, and oftentimes we neglect our protein. So if you front load it, let's say you have just basic protein sources earlier in the day, like eggs, like yogurt, milk, lean meats, whatever it is. And basically, one, it'll help keep us satiated throughout the day, meaning it'll help keep us feeling satisfied and full. Also, our body, it naturally burns more calories trying to metabolize food. That's a big part, or that's a portion of our overall metabolism in terms of daily calorie burn. And if we develop this habit of keeping our protein on the higher end, it'll definitely help in just overall ability to manage our cravings and reducing the chances of overeating. So it's really, really beneficial. And you've probably heard it so many times on the internet, but it's tried and tested. There's a reason why so many people talk about it. It's because it's tried and tested. I, have obviously tested this for years and years. So intermittent fast, prioritize protein earlier in the day. The other one is hydration. So hydrate as much as you can around meals. That's definitely going to help to keep our stomach full and just feeling high energy. But I would say in between, your snacks and your meals, try to fill your stomach, hydrate. Another thing is sparkling water really helps the fizziness. And if you're dieting or if you're, dining out, whatever, the same strategy applies. Sparkling water does really help. Now, okay, when it comes to the actual going to the restaurant itself, here's a few tips that honestly, they're so simple, but they do make a big difference. The first one is check the menu early, because a lot of the times we'll get there, and especially if we already have cravings, even if we followed everything like I mentioned, like you intermittent fast, you prioritize protein, whole foods, you hydrate, but you're still getting hungry leading into this meal. A lot of the times if you see the pizza or if you see whatever, the high calorie items, we're gonna gravitate towards those items. But if we have time to actually think about ahead of time what's on the menu, what we're gonna eat, then it's a lot easier to control. That we've already made up our mind that we're gonna get this item. And on that topic, especially if you're dieting, if you're just trying to be mindful of your health, then this still applies, but this is more so directed if you're on an actual diet, you're trying to lose weight, shed fat. The dishes that have the least ingredients are going to be your best friend. So basically, the more basic the food, the better. That doesn't mean it doesn't taste good. Essentially, single ingredient foods like lean meats, steamed veggies, whatever it may be, things like that. If you stick to that, you really can't go wrong. And I made a note because I didn't want to leave any specific types of foods out, but these types of dishes are super ideal when it comes to restaurants and dining out. So if you can, stick to steamed, poached, roasted, or boiled. I want to make sure I didn't not boiled, or boiled, I guess. I don't want to forget any of those, but they do really help in terms of, obviously, if you're having fried foods, if it's single fried, double fried, like you're going to have a lot of calories from that oil, from that batter adding up. Even if it's just one chicken tender, like at some of these restaurants, that can equate to 500 calories or like an excess of a few hundred calories. in comparison to the grilled option, for example. So there's so many options that still taste delicious, especially at restaurants. Like, it's still restaurant quality. It's just about having that mindfulness, especially ahead of time, so that when we get there, we know what we're gonna eat. So also, okay, sauces add up so quick. So on salads, even on, burgers, sandwiches, basically any dish, always ask for sauces on the side, just because that way you can control what's in it. And if you just, decide not to have the sauce at all, then amazing. You're gonna reduce your consumption that way anyways. And then if alcohol is going to be consumed, if you're gonna get cocktails, try to stick to non-sugary cocktails. Try to stick to light beer. If you're drinking beer, if you're drinking wine, so be it. But try to limit it to 1 or 2, just because alcohol is not calorie free. It actually does add up. So carbs equate to 4 calories per gram. Protein equates to 4 calories per gram. Fats are 9 calories per gram, and alcohol is 7 calories per gram. So alcohol also has calories. And so we still need to be mindful of that. That in itself can push us over the limit. So be mindful of that. If you are also having dessert and you're drinking, I always say a general rule of thumb is have one or the other. Try not to have both. It's just a lot easier to overconsume in that situation. The next thing is, if you're on business travel, you're gonna have per diem, and use that per diem wisely. Whatever your circumstance may be, try to pick up some protein shakes, some protein snacks if you haven't already packed it with you on a trip. Might as well have that handy if you're stuck in a conference room all day. Instead of going for the cookies or the M&Ms, whatever they put, at a conference or business meetings, you can at least help yourself a little bit by picking up some snacks using that per diem money. And I've done this myself, and it definitely makes a big difference. If you do have a little bit of craving, just drink a protein shake, have a protein bar, some beef jerky, whatever it is, and it really helps in the overall scheme of things to control the controllables essentially before we have, the meal out. Okay, and here is a really key one that so many of us don't ever keep in mind when it comes to dining out or just food in general. Just remember that food at the end of the day is fuel, and it's okay to enjoy ourselves and whatnot. And it's actually going to, if we have, an excess of calories, it's actually going to fuel our workout either that night or the next morning, because we're going to have that extra food in our system and we can put it to use. We can push harder in our workout. So it actually works to our benefit. But a lot of the time what happens is we'll have this extra food and then we'll be completely sedentary. We won't walk. We won't keep those other habits like prioritizing whole foods. And, we'll skip a workout the next morning because we're just feeling, sluggish and whatnot. But if we really can maximize and just keep that in mind, that extra food is actually going to help us in the long run, then it really reshifts our mind frame in terms of having a more positive relationship with those kinds of outings. Okay, but last but not least, flexibility is key in all of this. Okay, we want to develop good habits and a lifestyle around this, because I love dining out. I dine out like every single weekend, but for me personally, I save it for the end of the week. If it is during the week, then I'll try to be more mindful in my choices, or I'll put these other strategies in place earlier in the day so that I'm not as, restricted when I'm actually eating out at dinner, if like friends are in town or whatever it is. So that's the big thing. A general rule of thumb also is the 80-20 rule. This works across the board, weekdays, weekends, traveling, business trips, anywhere in the world, where 80% of your food, be mindful, have whole foods, and 20% of your diet, obviously have some fun, mix it up, get what it is you want to eat. But a lot of the time that 80-20 turns into 50-50 or, a different ratio. So to the best of our ability, if we can keep it to that, it really makes a huge difference. At the end of the day, me verbalizing it, like, it's very simple to hear it and we know it, but once you actually put it into practice, those small things can really make a huge difference. We're not perfect, right? We want to enjoy ourselves. We should enjoy ourselves. That's the beauty of life. Like, there's such an amazing thing about enjoying a meal with friends and family. It's just such a way to connect people, and I'm never going to say neglect that. But especially if you're dieting, just make sure that you keep these certain practices and habits in mind so that you can still find that balance that works for you and your goals. So if you got some value out of this, let me know. This is a very tangible one that you can start to implement as soon as today or this weekend, and really start to reduce the consumption and get one step closer to your goals. Because we're at the time of recording this, we are in the 3rd week of January 2025, and a lot of people are already starting to just wean off of their resolutions. And I don't want you to fall into that pile where you're just like, I've had an off day or 2 off days, whatever. Like, it's not worth getting back on the train. But I want you to be able to succeed and reach your goals, and it takes literally the smallest things to make the biggest difference. So again, hope you got some value out of this, and I'll see you in the next video.